Okay, so testing this out. Hi everyone, and this is the second larger video that we've done for the 3 fiber world editor. And in this video I just want to go through a few bits that we've added recently. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a nice lovely model for the grate, and if I just move this out of the way for a second, we can add to canvas, and if I click that, then we can transform it. So if I do 1.57, and then on the material for it, if I just quickly find the actual material for it, and I believe this is one of the street racer source files, so if we just use that one it'd be fine. Yeah, there we are. Okay, so what I'll show you at the moment is we have a few new sections in here. We've got the add waypoints, add particles, add lights. So first one I'm going to show you is the add particles, and if I add the steam vent, then if I hover over it in red, you can see we have the bounding box, which will change sizes depending on what you've actually got as the particles. So inside the particles we have a count, we have ranges or single values. So at the moment it's got a single y value of 0 and a range of z of 0.1 and an x, of 7. So if I make that 2, then I click on it, sorry, so it actually does it, then we can see it shrinking down. So most of the particles are now in the 2, and they do move slightly left and right, but most of them are in the 2 area. So if I stick that back up to about 6.5, it's probably more actually accurate for this grate, steam vent, whatever you want to call it. So that is the steam vent, and if I reload the whole thing, I'm going to quickly show you the fire. So if I load the first one, and then I'm going to load the second one, because they are both part of the same thing. So if I zoom in, you can see, if I move them close to each other, you can see this one, the second one I believe it is much more, I would say it's less intense, whereas the one on the right over here, the yellow one, is based on drops. That's based on slightly different images. So the other thing I can do obviously when I'm in here is I can change the colour, so I can make that one green, and then I can make that one blue or something, and then, you know, if we combine them, I guess it becomes more like something from Magic, or, you know, that kind of stuff. But if I drag that one back over again, and let's say I make that one red as it was, and then this one more of the yellow colour, and then we lay them over the top of each other and maybe make that a little bit more orange. There you go, you can kind of see it looks a little bit more fiery now, and yeah, you know, getting it in the right place, etc., is entirely up to you, and you could obviously change the velocity, the start size, the end size, how much opacity it's got on start and how much opacity it's got on end, and all that kind of lovely stuff. We have only made 3 of them so far for the particles. We will probably make more, but I think that's a case of the system to add them is there, so we'll just add more when we find it interesting to add more. There's millions of particles that could be added to this particle systems, so it's just something which will keep on going with changes. So next up, I'm just going to move my face again over this way. Apologies if you can see the bar over the top of it from QuickTime recording. So over here, if I just go and grab, let's say, a character, and which one? Let's do the hot dog character for now. So if I just add him to the canvas like that, and we can then go in and add a light, and I like the point light, it's one of my favourite ones. So if I give it a click, drag it over, and we drag it up, you can see it is changing the brightness around it, but it's not really affecting this, because this character, same as everything that's loaded by default, does not have the shadows enabled. So if I enable the shadows, there we go, we can see the shadow coming off him now. And if I come back to this and I change that to say 5, yeah, and then click off it, you can see that shadow is much more intense. And then if I move it back a bit, you know, you've got all the fun stuff in this. Change it back down to 1 or something, and obviously you could change the colour. So if we make it red, it's going to output a lot more red stuff, and you know, these it's all various bits of fun in this. I do believe it's kind of normal, really, the way it should work on any system. So if I do that, then you can see you still got the shadow and all that kind of stuff. So the lights are in there, and there is the ambient light, which you can just add, the point light, rect area light, and the spotlight. And I believe if I click on it and zoom out, you do have all the helper kind of stuff in there as well. which is kind of useful, so you can really see it down here. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, basically. There may be some tweaks and improvements to do to it, but as a basic version of the system, it is in there and it is working quite well at the moment. So the next thing I want to show you is the Waypoint system. So I think this is great where it is, and I've no doubt there will be some ways that I fancy improving it later on, but for now it's pretty good. So if I have this one and this one, I can add a waypoint before the second one, which should basically put it exactly where it is, and then if I drag it up and down, you can see that the two lines are moving with it, because that is now between the other two. So it has changed the previous one on this one to number 2, which is that one, and it has changed the next one on this one to number 2, which is the middle one. The green line is the next, and the red line is the previous, basically from each point. So the first one here doesn't have a previous, and the last one here doesn't have a next. So that's pretty normal, I think. And the other thing is, obviously we can change the widths of these, so I could make that 4 and make it excessively large. I could make it 2, I can make it 0.01, which is probably what I would do if I do it on that one as well. You know, you could use that for kind of cars moving around, I guess, or potentially cameras moving around if you want to pre-program a camera route around something. If you're not making a game and you're making, you know, a full blown kind of site application to show somebody around a factory or something for a customer, you could do that. But if I put that back to, I believe it was on 1, wasn't it? And that one on 1 as well, then I can show you the other bits. So if I move that one upwards like that, and we add another one there, and that has managed to do something interesting there. So basically that one does not have an X waypoint, which is pretty cool. That one does have an X waypoint, which is there. However, we want it to have that as an X waypoint as well. So if we go over to it, we can change it from a standard waypoint, which just has one next and one previous, to a node waypoint. And then we can add an extra one in here, and I believe it's probably going to be number 1. Yeah, so that one now has 2 nexts, so next and next. And these both, I believe, have the same number 2 as their previous. So you could do it on the other side, so you could have an X shape and all sorts of other cool stuff with that. And I guess the other thing to say is that if I right click on that, we can also turn it and all the lines stay where they should be connected to the points on it. So that's all pretty cool, and how you actually use it outside of the world editor inside your application or your game is entirely up to you. You know, we're not programming any of that stuff for you, but this is just where you can lay down. I mean, my instant thought of it is, you know, if you had a road and you want people to walk along by the side of the road, you could use this, and they can either go down this turn off or that turn off to get to the next area of the street and all that kind of stuff. You know, you could build waypoint systems exactly like this on your own, but it took a while for me to get this one to get it right, but I am quite proud of where that is now. So obviously you could click close on that and it just goes semi-transparent after you finish, so you can still see it while you're working, but it's not the most obvious thing. So it's, yeah, you know, you could then manage waypoints here outside of the grid and it will show all of them for you, basically, because I think that's the best way to do that. So the other thing we've got over here, obviously if you click them, you can instantly select them inside the grid element as well. So yeah, the other bit we've got in here is add group. I haven't done the ability to drag and drop things into a group yet, but it will create a group inside the whole models array for the whole thing. So that's a work in progress, the add group part there, but it is coming along quite nicely, and I think that's all of those bits in there done now. So I'll show you this bit up here. So we have the user configuration, and now we do an autosave of what's going on the screen. We default it to 15 minutes, and you can change this, and if you change it, it will save however long you've set to change it for. So if you put, I don't know, 3000, it won't save in a very long time. If you put 1 minute, it'll save every 1 minute as an autosave. And you do, if I just go to load, there you go, so you get your autosave, and then you get autosaves up to 10 as well. So after it goes to 10, it'll rewrite the first one and go back through again. So there is quite a range in there. So the other thing I did, and this is just going to hide my face for a second again, if I click this button, this is the full screen button, so the entire thing can now go full screen, which is really nice sometimes. So what else have we done? The other bit which I have been working on recently, which yeah, okay, if I show you that, I'll show you the prefab material first, because I think that's probably my favourite bit. So if I drag in a character, I do love these characters, and let's say we do the firefighter, and if I just add him to the canvas, then we can give him a click, and as you can see, he has a material with all sorts of lovely stuff on it. What we can then do is if I drag to the top, and I believe for the firefighter my favourite is 3A, and this is a Cinti model, and I do love their low poly models. I think they're absolutely gorgeous. We do have quite a lot of them now, and I think they're absolutely brilliant. So at this point what I can do is, we have our prefab material in there, I can drag it over onto that, and as you can see it has just straight away updated. And if I click back in here, then yeah, it's updated. You can see we've got the data in there now. So that is obviously one way of doing it, and that's showing you if that person just has one material. The way I really like this is, I'm going to have to try and find this, it may take me a moment, but it's because things like their war stuff here, we have inside the FBX, and I believe it's somewhere near the bottom. I do always struggle to find this one. I could use the search if I wasn't forgetting what it's actually called. I believe it's British, or is it English or something? It's definitely under the vehicle stuff. Plain England, that's the one I wanted. So if I just add that in, and then obviously drag it up because it's a bit low to start off with, then if we go to materials, you can see it has quite a lot of materials over here. So setting the map on each one by going into the folder would take quite a lot of time, which is obviously not the most fun thing to do. So if I click on textures, and I believe this one, if I remember, is the British fighter texture, I can drag it into the prefabs, and then I can drag that onto the group over here, and as you can see it has just basically added all of them that we needed. And if I click on this, we can go over to materials, and we can see they all now say British fighter texture, because it has loaded that same material into each one of these. Now if I wanted one of these to be different, what I could do is potentially say I want that first one to be different. I could click onto Mesh Basic, that'll reset it, or click back to Mesh Lambert, and then I could go into this and go into Polygon, and I have to find it again now. So War Source, Textures, and British Fighter Texture 2, we could do that, and as you can see it is a different colour. So that still works absolutely perfectly well. You can still change individuals, but the more you have with a reusing one, when you're saving your project with file save, you know, it's having to change less of them into base 64, which means your JSON that it's saving out is going to be much smaller size. So it is kind of worthwhile doing these things. Plus, if you're using the same material across loads of them, I think that that's probably good for your CPU as well, if I'm honest with you. Okay, so the next bit, if I show you how the prefab model system works very briefly. Now you can throw characters in which obviously have an animation, and it will just clone them each time you want to use them. There is no way of doing an instance mesh system of it, but you can still drag those into there. I haven't stopped that working. If I show you probably the better instance of it, which is a static mesh, which obviously we can then use in multiple places. So if I go to that one, and just to prove a point here as well, if I go into, excuse me, this is the city sources, city source file, sorry. If I just find, let's say 1A of that one, I can drag it in there, and I can drag that on top of that one there, and as you can see that has still obviously used that. And if I just drag my face out of the way, because we won't use the preview box anymore, if I right click on this, we can now add an instance. And if I drag that one out of the way, sorry, I don't think I clicked it properly. There you go. So it has added the next one in that place, and then I can add another one. It will always add it in position 0, 0, 0 of the mesh that you're currently in. So that is the correct position there, I believe. Sorry, the grid that you're in. So we could then add another one, and that's 4 of them there. So obviously if you needed to make a lineup of these kind of things, that's going to go pretty well, I believe. So if we add another one there, you know, who's to say this isn't an area for cars parking, this isn't another area for cars parking, things like that. You might want to have these this many. So I'm going to show you something now which has one minor issue, which is I haven't dealt with the saving of the prefab bits there, but it will still save the material itself, so it just won't load it as a prefab one again. So if I go over here and I just do Prefabs 2, because I can guarantee I don't have a Prefabs 2 in here, I can click save, I can reload, and then if we load it up very, very quickly, we can go to Prefabs 2, and as you can see, it has loaded all that stuff in. The only bit that's missing is the material, prefab material. I haven't coded that yet. That will be what I'm up to later tonight. But yeah, I think that basically shows the majority of what we've got here and how far we've come. So we do have some stuff we're working on at the moment as well, which is obviously I'm going to be finishing off the prefab materials today, and Faith is currently working on a snap when you move things, so we'll have a little checkbox in here or something, so with a magnet, and as you drag things around, if it's close enough to another bounding box like that of something that's similar to it, will snap into position. We'll do that both on the prefab instances and on kind of loose models. And yeah, basically I think that's where we're up to at the moment. The next big bits to do is obviously the export system here, which will be in charge of actually doing the export, where it'll probably save a zip file which will have all sorts of JavaScript and all the models in there. And I am 50-50 at the moment whether I want to export FBX files or GLB files. I am finding GLB files exporting with animations absolutely impossible, so if I can figure that one out, I will obviously let you know. Oh, I've just remembered one thing which I didn't show you, which I should have done. So whilst I remember it, if we go over to here, and I'll just drag this back out of the way over here, always moving that around in this video. So if we come down to characters, I forgot to show you the animation stuff which we've done. Yeah, my apologies on that. So if I go, let's say Gamer Girl, and we'll add her, and there she is. And I have to say that I do prefer one of the other textures. So if I just put A on her, she's got some lovely purple clothing, which is always cool. So if we click back on mesh and we click on animation this time, we can see that we have no animations. So if I click that and I go back into my Cinti folder where I've just put everything, and these are all animations which I downloaded from Mixamo, where I've uploaded one of their characters, and it works across all of their characters. It's one of the brilliant things about Cinti themselves, who are absolutely awesome. So if I do MMA kick, I do, let's say, happy idle, and let's say silly dancing, and I load those three. I can press play on them and it'll just loop play them. I can press play on that one, it'll loop play, and press play on that one and it'll loop that one. And if I click over all three of them, I can create a group for this, and if I call it say something like test, just so I know what it is, I could play that, and it will start with the kick, it'll go on to the happy idle, and then it'll do the silly dancing, which we can see by clicking this cog here. So this is showing you all the different bits inside it. What we can do is say, kicking first then dancing last is wrong, so how about we swap it all around a little bit, and there we are. So we'll have silly dancing, happy idle, then MMA kick, and if I press play again, we have our dance, and in a second we'll move on to the happy idle, and then we'll move on to the MMA kick. So the reordering of all that does work, and if you press the cross, it'll just hide the stuff there. So at this point, if I wanted to then add in, I don't know, a firefighter and move them slightly apart, which probably helps, I could then say, I could copy these individually across to the firefighter. In fact, what I might do is just prove that. So if I go in here and let's say I do the sad idle, so I could go to the sad idle, I could copy that animation, and then if I click onto him, I can paste that animation and I can play it, and it has for some reason triggered her animations off. I need to look into why it's doing that, but there's nothing actually wrong with it particularly. So that one is now showing the sad animation. So the other thing I could do is if I go over to her and drop down her animation, let's press stop on her for a second, I can copy her group, and if I click over to him, I can then paste the whole group onto him. So it's added the extra 3. It hasn't copied over the title yet, so that is something I do still need to to work on. But if I drop that down, you can see Silly Dancing, Happy Idle and MMA Kick, and I'm pretty sure if I press play on this, it's going to make them both do it. Oh no, this time it hasn't, and it has started playing the wrong thing. So that is interesting. There is a few issues with the playback system here, but copying and pasting these in is working, which is a positive at least. So I think we are kind of slowly getting there with this stuff. The copy and paste means that these do have in them the whole animations. They do exist, and they do have this against them in the array for all the models. Is literally just choosing what to play back, I think, is ever so slightly wrong. But as I say, copy and paste on this stuff is actually great, and it is working, so I'm quite happy with that. And other than that, I think that is the end this time, if I remember rightly. So yeah, as I say, there has been quite a lot of movement on this stuff. And yeah, the next big things to do is the snap while moving option. If you put a large object mesh going over 2 grids sections, if you're doing level of detail in your game or your app or whatever you're making, you might want it so that it only shows the bit which is in the current one, if that kind of whole grid section is out of the level of detail. So what you might want to do is set it so it can Boolean cut in the middle and then create 2 meshes, so a left and a right mesh kind of thing, if we were doing it over those 2, or forwards and backwards, or backwards and forwards and side to side again over there, that kind of stuff. Or you could choose not to do that as well. So I think we'll make that as an option over here when you click on one of your objects. So maybe under the geometry bit here, we could have it so it's able to be chopped with a Boolean slice down the middle and then 2 meshes created of it, which I think will help matters massively. And then obviously, yeah, as I think I said, the export, which is the big bit which is yet to come. But once we've done those, I think we'll be then writing a test where we create a quick game using this. If that works perfectly fine, then I'll probably choose to do the initial release on this on GitHub, and it will be available for anybody for free. We're not charging anyone for any of this stuff. Just so people are aware, it's a React Fiber front end, and it is also using Socket.io in the back end at the moment to be able to get access to all the File Explorer stuff down here. So, and also do saves and things like that. So it is going to require 2 different bits like that, but if you're running it locally, you can just do an npm run dev in both the front end and the back end. And all the files here are basically within a public files folder, which, you know, should be reasonably good. So you can just drop stuff in that if you want to do them, and when you do the export, when we've actually got around to writing it, I'll be able to give you more information on how that's going to work. But as I say, I believe it's just going to be an export, a zip file with all the contents that you can then import into your React app. Cool, okay, so I will give you an update the next time we have some massive work done on this, and let you guys know where we're up to. Alright, thank you very much, cheers.